St. Christopher, the story of the giant who carried Christ. Long ago, in a time of empires and legends, in a land scorched by the sun and cooled by the prayers of the faithful, a man unlike any other walked the earth. Towering over his peers, strong as a lion and determined as the tide, he would come to be known across generations and continents. Not for the wars he fought, not for the treasures he gathered, but for one simple, profound act. He carried a child across a river. That man was St. Christopher, the Christ-bearer. Origins of a giant. St. Christopher is believed to have been born in the 3rd century, sometime around 200 to 250 AD. His birthplace, according to most traditions, was Canaan, a region in the ancient Near East. His birth name was Reprobus, which in Latin means outcast or rejected, a name that foretold a life of struggle, transformation, and divine destiny. Reprobus was no ordinary child. As he grew, it became clear that he was blessed, or perhaps cursed, with enormous size and strength. Some accounts claim he stood over 7.5 feet tall, with the strength of many men. People feared him, and yet kings desired his service. He was, after all, a man of unmatched power, exactly the kind of soldier a kingdom could use. But Reprobus was not content to serve just any master. Searching for the greatest king. The legend tells that Reprobus sought to serve the greatest king in the world, so he set off on a journey, offering his service first to a powerful earthly king. This king ruled vast lands, had wealth beyond imagining, and commanded armies. Reprobus served him loyally, until one day he noticed that the king made the sign of the cross whenever the devil was mentioned. "Why do you do that?" Reprobus asked. The king replied, "Because I fear the devil." And with that, Reprobus left. "If you fear the devil," he said, "then he must be greater than you. I will go and serve him instead." Reprobus then sought out the devil himself and pledged his loyalty to him. But even the devil had his fears. One day, while walking with Reprobus, they passed a roadside cross, and the devil turned away anxiously. Reprobus noticed. "Why did you avoid that symbol?" he asked. The devil hesitated. "Because it is the sign of Christ. He is greater than I." So once again, Reprobus left his master. If even you fear Christ, then he must be the greatest king. I will find him and serve him instead. The Hermit and the Mission. Reprobus searched high and low until he met a holy hermit living in solitude. The hermit spoke to him about Jesus Christ, the King of heaven and earth, and the God of all creation. "How do I serve him?" Reprobus asked. The hermit explained the disciplines of prayer, fasting, and devotion. But Reprobus, with all his strength and simplicity, said, "I am not suited for fasting or prayer. I cannot read. Teach me another way to serve him." The hermit thought for a moment, and then pointed to a dangerous river nearby, a river that had claimed many lives over the years. "Use your strength to carry people across this river. Do it in Christ's name." So Reprobus built a hut near the riverbank and began his new life. Day and night he carried travelers, young and old, rich and poor, across the churning waters. He asked nothing in return, but served with humility and patience. People began to talk of the giant ferryman who helped them cross. He had no idea that the greatest test of all was yet to come. The Child on the Riverbank. One night, as a storm began to rumble across the hills, Reprobus sat in his hut, listening to the roar of the river. a soft voice broke through the thunder. "Will you carry me across?" asked a small child standing at his door. Reprobus smiled and lifted the boy onto his shoulders. Together, they stepped into the water. But with each step, the river grew wilder, and the child seemed to grow heavier. The rain lashed down, the wind howled, and Reprobus strained with every ounce of his mighty strength. The child's weight became almost unbearable, as though he carried the whole world upon his back. "Who are you?" Reprobus gasped. The child replied, "You carry not only me, but the one who made the world. I am Christ, your King. You have carried your Lord." And then the storm stopped. The river calmed, and the child vanished. The new name, Christopher. From that moment, Reprobus was no longer Reprobus. He had been reborn. He was now Christopher, from the Greek Christophoros, meaning Christ-bearer. He had found the greatest king, and he had served him well. Preaching and martyrdom. Christopher's encounter with Christ changed him entirely. He was baptized, and he began to preach the gospel fearlessly, even in lands hostile to Christianity. Eventually, he traveled to Lycia, a region in modern-day Turkey, where the Roman Emperor Decius, or Maximinus Daia, depending on the tradition, ruled with an iron fist. Christopher openly preached Christ, converting thousands, including soldiers and even members of the royal court. This enraged the emperor, who ordered his arrest. But when his soldiers saw the giant man and heard his words, many of them converted instead. The emperor tried to seduce Christopher away from the faith, first with wealth, then with women. But Christopher remained steadfast. He even converted the 2 courtesans sent to tempt him. Finally, after being tortured in unimaginably cruel ways, scourged, beaten with iron rods, burned, and tied to a metal chair heated white-hot, Christopher was beheaded. It is believed this took place around the year 251 AD in Lycia. He died a martyr, his faith unshaken, his mission fulfilled. The miracles of St. Christopher. Throughout the centuries, countless miracles have been attributed to St. Christopher's intercession. Travelers lost at sea or stranded in distant lands have reported visions of the saint guiding them to safety. Soldiers in battle have invoked his name and felt courage rise in their hearts. There are stories of children healed from fevers, of people spared from storms, of lost travelers finding their way after praying to him. His miraculous strength and faithfulness to Christ have made him a powerful intercessor in times of danger, uncertainty, and transition. His image, often showing him carrying the Christ child across a river, became so popular in the Middle Ages that people believed if you saw an image of St. Christopher in the morning, you would not die that day. Legacy and patronage. St. Christopher's legacy has endured for over 1,700 years. Though he was removed from the general Roman calendar in 1969 due to the legendary nature of many of the stories surrounding him, he was never decanonized. He is still venerated as a saint, and his cult remains strong around the world. He is considered the patron saint of travelers, including pilgrims, seafarers, motorists and drivers, people facing sudden death, bachelors, soldiers, athletes, air travelers. His feast day is traditionally celebrated on July 25th in the Roman Catholic tradition, though in the Eastern Orthodox Church he is remembered on May 9th. His image appears on medals, car dashboards, luggage tags, keychains, and even tattoos, offering a reminder to all who travel that they are not alone, that someone strong once carried Christ and still watches over those who journey today. Saint Christopher in art and devotion. Saint Christopher is one of the most visually recognizable saints in Christian art. He is almost always depicted as a giant man, carrying a child with a radiant halo on his shoulder, often holding a staff, which sometimes miraculously blossoms into a palm tree, crossing a river. These depictions are not just artistic, they are theological. They show a man who bore Christ not only on his shoulders but in his heart. And they remind the faithful that even the strongest among us must bow to a greater strength. In Eastern icons, St. Christopher is sometimes portrayed with the head of a dog, based on a very ancient and rare legend that he came from a tribe of dog-headed people, cynocephaly. This is not a common or official tradition in the West, but it speaks to the rich diversity of Christian folklore. A final word: the Christ-bearer in all of us. The story of St. Christopher is more than just the tale of a man who carried Jesus across a river. It is the story of transformation, of seeking truth, wrestling with power, and finally, surrendering to love. In a world where strength is often seen as domination, St. Christopher teaches us that true strength is service. He reminds us that carrying the burdens of others, no matter how heavy, can be an act of holiness. And he shows us that even the mightiest need faith to guide them. Whether we're crossing literal rivers, or the metaphorical rivers of doubt, fear, or change, St. Christopher walks with us. He stands on the banks, reaching out a hand, not just to carry us, but to remind us that Christ, too, is on our shoulders and in our hearts. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and join us for more stories of the saints, the legends, the faith, and the people who change the world one soul at a time. Until next time, safe travels.